everyone. I'm Kelly Damewood, CEO of California Certified Organic Farmers, better known as CCOF. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to Seeding Change, the future of organic food and agriculture. So I'm joined today by several panelists. We have Jason Beekle, who's here in his capacity as CEO of Whole Foods Market, Andrea Abel, Executive Director of Farmshare Austin, and Ricky Silver, CEO of Daily Harvest. So we're going to do a round of introductions, and then we're going to talk about our relationship. We all work together, talk about the partnership between for-profit and nonprofit organizations and companies in advancing organic agriculture. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits of organic and our visions for the future. We will leave time for questions at the end. We're going to do it note card style. So if you have a question, see our friend Michael over here. He has note cards, and you can write your question down. That'll just help make sure that we get it to as many questions as possible at the end. So with that, let's move to introductions. Jason, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. Jason Beekle with Whole Foods Market. I'm really excited to be here today. I have a deep connection to our food systems. Both of my grandparents operated dairy farms. My dad was a cheesemaker. I've been gardening since I was 7, and the topic today for me is really personal in ensuring that we have opportunities to protect the future of our food system. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Thanks, Jason. Andrea.
Good morning. I'm Andrea Abel. I'm Executive Director with Farmshare Austin. I also have a deep connection to organic agriculture. My grandpa was a dairy farmer also. I also have a deep lifelong belief that food is a human right, and access not just to food but to delicious, nutritious, colorful, abundant, culturally desired food is really important. And I also believe that coming to the table for a meal has far more benefits than just the nutrients of the food itself. A little bit about Farmshare Austin. We are a nonprofit with a mission to grow a healthy and just and equitable local food system. We're located 20 miles east of right here where you are in eastern Travis County. We have we work in food access and cultivating new farmers. So we offer a pathway to farming in organic and sustainable agriculture for beginning farmers, and then most of the food that we grow on the farm goes directly to our food access work.
Thanks, Andrea. Ricky.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ricky Silver. I'm the CEO at Daily Harvest. We're on a mission to make it easier for folks to eat organic fruits and vegetables, hence our deep connection to the organic movement. Personally, I actually started my career as a chemist and personal chef, and so I've long been at the intersection of the sciences, supply chain, and food, and know just how important it is to get sort of the country and the consumer more and more connected to how our food is grown. We know that's sort of the way forward to get people to eat the right way and ultimately to build a system that's more nourishing than the one we have today. So excited to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Ricky. A little bit about CCOF. So to sell organic in the United States, you have to be certified by a federally accredited certification agency. CCOF is one of those agencies. We also have a foundation. Every year we raise and give away millions of dollars to help farmers either transition to organic or help farmers stay in organic production. So Andrea, would love to hear from you just your relationship with Farmshare Austin's relationship with Whole Foods Market and the CCOF Foundation and the support for your work.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with Whole Foods and Whole Cities Foundation. We've had an amazing partnership with Whole Cities Foundation and Whole Foods over the years. And it started in 2017 when our Fresh for Less mobile markets and home delivery started. Our very first grant from Whole Cities Foundation enabled us to buy our very first delivery van. We had a van before that. It should not have been out on the road. So we're really grateful for that. Over the years, Whole Cities has grown with us and partnered with us as we have grown. And that growth has been not just that financial growth, but also that financial support and growth, but also the foundation has been a true partner. You all have provided us capacity building. You all have provided us media support. and you have the most amazing groups that come out to the farm. As we were talking a little bit earlier, getting their hands in the soil, learning more about who we are, bringing amazing snacks, and just being a true partner in that way.
Amazing.
I just want to thank you for the wonderful partnership. Our higher purpose is nourishing people and the planet, and this partnership for me is just like one of the examples of being able to connect and support our communities and our broader stakeholders. So it's been a wonderful partnership from my perspective as well.
I should also, I can't forget to mention, our board treasurer is from Whole Foods, and he is whipping us into financial shape. So really grateful for that as well.
Amazing. And Ricky, you all have also invested in organic farmers. You want to talk a little bit about how Daily Harvest invests back into the supply chain?
Sure. So early on, we felt like as a brand that wanted to be committed to the organic space, it wouldn't be enough just to purchase organic ingredients. We really wanted to be a change agent for that transitional period. And so we've worked in some cases on our own and in many cases with the partnership of CCOF in helping understand what the barriers for transitioning more farmland to organic are, and then alleviating those barriers. And so in some cases, we've done direct contracting with farmers who are interested in transitioning more of their land to organic, and have offered a premium during that 3-year period to help alleviate the financial barriers. And maybe our largest effort in a multi-year partnership with CCOF and the American Farmland Trust, we worked to provide direct grant funding and wraparound services to small farmers, largely underrepresented farmers that don't have the resources they need, both with the funding and the wraparound services to make the transitional investment. And so we have always tried to stay at the intersection of what's hard about organic transition and to uplift what we're hearing from the farming community, because I've certainly not met a farmer that is resistant to the transition itself. It's more the resistance to the risk or the recognition of the burdens that it puts on them. And so it's been great to partner together, and I think we've had a lot of great success, and we've also learned, where the challenges are.
Yeah, so it takes about 3 years to move a piece of conventional land to organic production. So think about the uncertainty, because the market's going to change a lot over the course of those 3 years. You're learning how to use new tools, new inputs. It's quite a big challenge. And so companies like Whole Foods and Daily Harvest, what's so incredible is they're looking down the supply chain and kind of working shoulder to shoulder and saying, hey, we're in this with you, and we're going to help fund and support your transition and this risk that you're taking. And they've been able to fund our program so that we can give direct grants to producers. We have a future organic farmer in the audience, Dasha, who's local to Austin, so helping to fund those farmers getting started on the land. So yeah, thanks for exploring that partnership.
And I just want to mention the important nugget here is for us to have successful food systems and truly be able to leverage programs where more and more farmers can practice things like organic, we have to find these win-win-win solutions where we come together as the retailer, as the certifier, as the grower, producer. In many cases, some of these products are commodities going into other products, so the manufacturers. And so finding ways by which we can understand how we're going to utilize this product, not just tomorrow in the next 6 months, but looking into the future of what does 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 years look like, allows us to have more sustainable practices across our businesses, and ultimately allows the farmers to have confidence that they know where their supply is going.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about certification, because Ricky, Daily Harvest has taken on the daunting task of certifying an international supply chain. So I'd just love to hear from you, like, why did you all make that commitment to get certified? What's that meant for your business?
Yeah, so from the very beginning of our business, we were committed to sourcing certified organic ingredients. And as I mentioned, our commitment to transitional spaces, that has meant that for some of our commodities, while they're being grown organically during that 3-year period, they're not yet in the certification process. And also worth noting, we were a native direct-to-consumer brand, and so we had just an incredible amount of connectivity with the consumer to storytell and to make the case for why a commitment to a 90-plus percent sourcing of organic ingredients, and then leaving space for this transitional commodity investment was important. As we've expanded our business and we've moved into more of a retail footprint, right, there is nothing as important as the organic certification on the finished product to signal the importance of that commitment to the end consumer. And so, to your point, it is complex. We're not just an international supply chain with 200 plus ingredients. We also have about 100 SKUs across our online and in-store portfolio. But that commitment is, I think, in service of the integrity behind organic. And so we want consumers to know that we're not just talking about a commitment, but we are being validated by third parties, and that ultimately the investments we're making are for the greater good of them and the food system we're supporting. So it was a very easy decision in some ways, even though the work is hard. And I think we're particularly interested in better understanding how we can support an acceleration of transition here in the U.S. in particular, given the gap that exists. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and we're almost there, 100%.
Not too much paperwork. You guys are surviving the.
We're doing just fine with the paperwork, but it is, it's work, right? And there's a level of expertise. I mean, even as a brand navigating it internally, right? We're to some extent have the luxury of investing in those resources. I think it really speaks to the importance of the capabilities that a CCOF or other grant funders can provide, because small farmers may not have the ability to provide or to create the same resources that we've been able to. So it's a very eye-opening experience going through it internally, because it makes you feel that much more empathetic and sort of urgent for those that are growing the food. And I think that's why we're here today.
Well, Whole Foods is a certified organic retailer since 2003, I believe,
Yes.
Which is also quite an endeavor and really demonstrates the commitment to the organic integrity. You want to talk a little bit about what organic certification means for Whole Foods?
Yeah, I mean, for us, this is such an important part of our business. We're really proud of the work that we've done in helping establish and grow the organic industry, not only here in the U.S., but around the world. So going just over 44 years ago, we opened our very first store here in Austin, Texas. Very proud for this to be our hometown. And our goal at that point was to help make organic and natural foods accessible and available. And the work that we've done over the next few decades has ultimately created a market and awareness of the importance for these products. And the word integrity has been used several times already on the panel. But the reason why we have the certification is ensuring that the consumer can trust what they're eating has actually been validated through the process and commitments and the claims that we're bringing forth. And for us, on the organic side, not only do we look at all the different benefits of why consumers want this product, but all the other stakeholders of why this is good, why it's good for the environment, why it's good for communities, why it's good for the future of our food systems. And part of the reason we made this investment into ensuring that all of our stores and facilities are certified, it's making sure at the very last mile we don't have a breakdown in that integrity. And this is something we're really proud of being the only national retailer that has actually gone through this certification and maintains it. There have been several others who've gone in and have regressed because it's a lot of work. But we do it for two reasons. One, we do it for our customers. We want to make sure that we can continue to have that established trust when they know that they are buying an organic product, that through the very last mile and to the point by their making the purchases in our stores or having it delivered to their homes, the integrity is there. We also do it for our suppliers. The hardest part of the work is upstream. The last mile that I'm talking about is going through our facilities. All of the really, really hard work has taken place. In many cases, this is years and years of work that our farmers have had to do to ultimately support this certification. And so it's helping, in my mind, really honor the great work that they've done as well to ensure that the last mile, we've ultimately preserved the integrity from an organic standpoint.
Great, thank you. And Andrea, you work with really small scale producers. So what does organic certification mean for your Farmshare Austin growers?
Farmshare is deeply committed to organic certification. On a macro level, farming organically means working with the ecosystem. You are a part of the ecosystem, and if you are truly connected to that ecosystem, it requires fewer inputs and you have more balance. So on that's where we approach it from the macro level. As a nonprofit business, it just makes good sense. It is a lot of paperwork, but it also means that you have that information year over year to be able to rely on when you're making your business decisions. And in farming, unlike a lot of other business practices, it might be another year before you get to put into practice what you learned the previous year. And I don't know about you, but I have a hard time remembering what I had for breakfast. So by farming organically, it is like the most detailed journaling you will ever do. And so our farmers, and actually our education director, Michelle Akindia, is here, who teaches all of our beginning farmers and also oversees the whole farm team. When they are doing the crop planning from one year to the next, they can go back and look at those records and really see what has happened. So I remember that last year we had our best crops ever of cucumbers and squash. And one of the reasons that was when they were doing the crop planning, they looked back in the previous years, they noticed there was heavy pest infestation at the beginning of the spring season, so they waited to plant until a little bit later, and then they reaped the benefits. And then from a teaching perspective, we are a teaching farm. We are teaching adults how to launch careers in organic and sustainable farming. And it's really just good business practices. It is a lot easier to start with good habits than to unlearn good habits. I'm sorry, unlearn bad habits.
The most common question I get when I tell people what I do is it really organic? How do you know? And in truth, organic's the most regulated food label you will find in the United States. So any certified organic operation, they're keeping very detailed records of any fertilizers, any inputs that they're using. They have to document how they're maintaining and improving soil health, how they're protecting biodiversity. They undergo an annual organic inspection. So it is really a rigorous start to finish process. So I want to transition, talk a little bit about the benefits, like why are we growing organic? And Ricky, you're former chef, and I think I'm guessing flavor and nutrition and taste is a big part of your journey. You want to talk a little bit about those benefits?
Yeah, I think it is well researched, and many commodities or growing organically leads to higher nutrient density and oftentimes greater flavor profiles. And for a brand like ours, that is essentially when you open up one of our smoothie cups or one of our ready-to-cook meals, you see the whole ingredients right there. It is paramount to our success that we commit to organic ingredients. The quality we get in the development process of those recipes and ultimately what the consumer expects from us is just a step above. I'd also say that the connectivity back to biodiversity is really important. One, because there's oftentimes in different farming spaces the benefit of growing a biodiverse range of commodities is a benefit to the resiliency of the soil and resiliency of the farmland. And we really believe that biodiversity is also a direct benefit to consumers from a nutrition standpoint. And so we try really hard to create very unique and interesting recipes that bring commodities that you wouldn't typically think to see to life in the formats that they have. I mean, how many of you had kohlrabi in a smoothie, for example? If you've had a Daily Harvest smoothie, maybe you have. But so that is really important for us. And pairing our sourcing team and our culinary team, our chefs, has always been what's, I think, probably set us apart. And you see it when you open each and every one of our items.
And Jason, I think you've been around the world on different farms and have seen a lot of different practices. What are some of the benefits that you see to farming organically?
Yeah, in addition to the points that Ricky mentioned, for me the nutrient density piece is so important. But when you look at sort of antioxidant levels, they're nearly 70% higher in organic product, in produce in particular. And even when you look across meat and dairy, the levels amongst research is shown similarly. And so the product at the end of the day is going to be better and healthier for the end state consumer. But it's also about what's not in the product that we really have to focus on. When you look at sort of the toxic pesticides and herbicides that are persistent in products, this is what's going in our bodies. And so when we look at like why customers want to buy organic, they want to avoid this. And at the end of the day, it's not just about that these products are ending up in our soils, but it's our waterways as well. It's the air that we breathe. And it's ultimately not just the bodies of what we eat, but when we think about the workers who are interacting with our produce and our products in our fields, ultimately we're helping protect them as well. And so for me, I look at this as sort of a chain where it's all working together as we can look at practices like organic to ensure that we're creating a healthy food system from soup to nuts. And making sure that consumers understand all of the different benefits, I think, is one of the responsibilities that we as a retailer and as different stakeholders have in ensuring that customers understand why we're doing these steps.
We were talking a little bit earlier about just the challenge of communicating to customers what are the benefits of organic. You know, every synthetic material that is allowed in organic and it's limited is reviewed every 5 years. There's a lot of scrutiny. It's a very sort of wonky industry. There's so much integrity behind it, but communicating out that message to the customer can be challenging. Like, why should I pay a little bit extra to get a certified organic product? So just curious if you all want to touch on some of the challenges and opportunities you see for communicating with customers and American shoppers.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. One, a consumer or customer at any given point is distracted with so many things as they're making decisions around their food purchases. In many cases, they're in a situation of figuring out like what's for dinner tonight or my next meal, and so it's not always about what are the different attributes or what's happened upstream within the supply chain. And so I think this is one of the areas that we have to sort of be in an always-on sort of mode. And we do a lot of this work through in-store signage. Through digital interactions for customers to be able to understand some of these areas. One of the things that I think can be really effective is our customers being able to understand who the farmer or who the supplier is, helping create that direct connection. And so that's a lot of work that we've done, especially on the local side, in being able to tell the story. And there's nothing like actually getting out on a farm. For me personally, being able to visit so many different suppliers, if I take Hickory Nut Gap Farm, which is one of our suppliers in Asheville, being able to be there and actually get my hands in the dirt and be able to see the difference of the biodiversity of what you're going to find there versus other conventional farms that I've had a chance to visit, it's mind-blowing. And so I think what we have to be able to do is make sure that every consumer and customer can be in a place of understanding like how this shows up differently. Like what does it actually mean to the local biodiversity based upon the practices that we're using to grow products. And one of the ways to do that is ultimately looking at some of the different media that we have out there. I mean, there's a lot of great documentaries. Common Ground, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, is personally, I think one of my favorites, to being able to help sort of tell this story and on a consumer level be able to understand the importance of these practices.
I'd love to just add, from our perspective, we think about the power of brand partnership in this sort of marketing challenge. Really, we take it very seriously. I'll tell this story way too many times, but back in the early parts of my career, I was laughed out of a large beverage company for suggesting we partner with the other large beverage company on a sustainability initiative. And so I've always brought that with me in my sort of later stages, particularly as a leader at Daily Harvest, where if we can partner with even, direct competitors to communicate the benefits of the work we're doing, then we should, because us trying to nail the differences and communicate the benefits solely in the benefit of Daily Harvest is one, highly inefficient, and two, right, not in service of the greater output. So we have a couple really interesting partnerships with other brands that, again, some directly compete and some in sort of adjacent spaces where we've tried to pool our resources to be more effective, both in the impact we're having, but also in the touch points with consumers. And I think retailers are more and more interested in those types of brand level partnerships as well, because if brands can show up in a retail footprint and actually bring together one story, holistically and sort of expand the impact, there's a lot of partnership potential. So I always just like to lift that up, because it's not one brand or one retailer or one sort of nonprofit that's going to be able to win. We all have to kind of commit together.
Yeah, some co-opetition.
Yes.
Andrea.
I'd love to add there, on a very local level, in our food access work, our customers tell us that some of the primary reasons that they want to shop for our reduced price, local produce, and nutrient-dense grocery items is they are seeking organic, sustainable, they are looking for local, and they want to know who the farmer is, and they want to support the local farm economy.
Absolutely. Well, what are you all excited about around organic and next year? Like, what kind of initiatives are you working on right now to support the growth of organic in your businesses in general?
One of the things that we spend a lot of time on is looking at how are we ensuring that we can secure the right level of supply that we need for operating our business on an ongoing basis. And this is something that I think is really important in making sure that we are planning directly with all of the different stakeholders involved. I mentioned a little bit earlier about some of the win-win-win opportunities that are out there. And for us, it's being able to connect with not only our suppliers, but the different manufacturers of the many products that we sell in the store to help understand what can we do to ensure that we can improve the conditions of our food system. And one of the things I like to think about as Whole Foods is we love the fact that we are helped create the organic market, and we are the leading organic retailer here in the U.S. But for us, it's making sure that we can create a bigger tent as well. We want to move conventional farming practices and help advance across the board. And so we've been doing a lot of work in helping support things like regenerative agriculture as well, but having a certification that actually stands behind it and means something. And so for us, it's about moving everybody forward. And so our goal here is to help create a big tent where we can change the practices across the entire agricultural landscape. And we all know that organic is really sort of the move that we'd love to have everybody there, but the work it takes time, and it's investment that takes place. And so a big part of this is finding those win-win opportunities. It's helping make the commitments not just 6 months out, but 3 years out in some of the suppliers that we are working with, so they have an understanding of where their product is going to be able to go, and they can make the right investments. What's also exciting about organic is for our farmers and our suppliers, this can be a more profitable business for them. But the reality is year 1 and year 2 may not be there. And so it's something that takes a little bit longer investment. And so our goal here is to find those win-win opportunities so those investments can be made and we can ultimately see success not only for the farmer, but having a higher quality food product for our consumers.
What about you, Andrea? What are you excited about? What are you all working on? Initiatives?
Well, a couple things. What I'm really excited about is Farmshare has taken the lead to create the Central Texas Farm Incubator Collaborative, which will provide that pathway to farming for advanced beginning farmers. And we have launched this February, just last month. We have a combination of 3 local organic farms, Farmshare Austin, Hopeful Farm, and Greengate Farms, where 5 advanced beginning farmers are launching their organic food businesses as we speak. They're probably out there this morning watering their plants in the greenhouse. And this is interesting because it is a collaborative. We are all 3 of us are small farms, and this way we can harness our land, we can harness the experience of the farmers, and we can work together to get new farmers on the land. The collaborative provides access to land for 3 years. It provides mentorship, and it provides business and food safety training. And I also wanted to add some context there for that. On the national level, the National Young Farmers Coalition has identified that access to farmland is the biggest barrier for new farmers. In Texas, the average age of a farmer is 60 years old, which is almost 2 years older than the national average. And then locally, only about 0.06% of the food that is grown locally is consumed locally. So of all the food that we consume here in Austin, 0.06% is grown locally. And that's a huge issue if we're talking about resilience. And in addition to that, in addition to the 0.06%, we're losing 16 acres of farmland every day in Travis County. So there's a really dire need for us to come together as a farming community to be able to provide that pathway for those new farmers. Farmshare has graduated 117 farmer starters in our beginning farmer training program. Over 65% of those students are farming, including we've got graduates like Dasha here. And if our mission resonates with you, if you feel a connection to what we're doing, we just ask you to partner with us and support us along the way.
Amazing. Ricky, what are you excited about? What are you working on?
Yeah, just a couple quick hits, I guess. We finished up our 3-year program in partnership with CCOF and the American Farmland Trust, and I think there's a lot of learnings that come out of that to say, okay, how can we kind of expand those efforts, and how can we tweak and go from there? So I'm excited to have those active conversations and continue to build. We're also 3 years into a 5-year pilot study with some of our almond grower partners. I was mentioning some of the branded partnership side here, and this is an actual 5-year commitment to validate different methodologies on the ground, regenerative organic and regenerative organic, to actually validate the impact it's having on soil health, sort of the outputs and the nutrient density of the almonds themselves. What I'm most excited about is the partnership has, it's a 5-year study. Along the way, we've seen enough signs that more farmers are joining the partnership, so we're expanding the adoption of the practices, and we're getting more and more attention from larger brands that want to come in and accelerate things. And so sometimes small brands start in small capacities to try to validate what they know, and I always measure our impact if we're able to influence others to get involved. And so it's been great to see that effort take shape. And so we're starting to think about, okay, that was one commodity in one region. How do we take a similar approach for other commodities that might have the same type of impact?
A real commodities focused research. Studying the nutritional quality of foods is so complex, but some really exciting science coming out on the relationship, the healthier the soil, the relationship to the human microgut biome. So definitely exciting studies to be working on. Well, Andrea, for the locals, are there some local Farmshare Austin graduates? Like, what kind of businesses are they starting? Like, what kind of products should people be looking for at the farmers market and other local stores?
Absolutely. Well, you were out at the farm yesterday. You got to meet quite a few of the graduates who were out there for our spring transplant sale yesterday. So let's see. We have got the farm manager at the Central Texas Food Bank is one of our graduates. The farm manager at the Refugee Collective, which is a nonprofit focused on providing livelihoods through food and fiber, is one of our graduates. We are at other nonprofits like Urban Roots. We also have people who have launched their businesses. We have, Michelle, help me out. Who are some of our... I was thinking of...
I got to meet the Suckle Punch creator, a honeysuckle soda he's created.
Honeysuckle soda. Exactly. There's Hot Spell Farm, which is a cooperative farm here in Austin that is growing beautiful produce. And we source from 15 local farms for our food access work, and many of them are our graduates. You got some other ones?
Lewis doesn't have a farm name yet. So new.
Yeah. Yeah, we have our 5 new organic farmers through the incubator collaborative, and we have a farm collaborative right now of our graduates called Shenanigators, and they are growing out at our farm actually right now.
Yeah, I love the creativity and bringing in like honeysuckle, local ingredients, and creating a new product. What about you, Ricky? Any exciting products you want to share? I think you just got an award for a product.
We did just at Expo West. Our new gluten-free pasta meals came out this past year, and as a personal chef, I love to cook still, but I'm eating our gluten-free pasta meals once or twice a week. They're fantastic. But yeah, we're always looking for innovation. We're always looking at ways to expand the sort of meals and the day parts we support. Again, it's the benefit of the sort of foundation we've built. And yeah, expanding in more and more retailers as well. So hoping to be able to meet more and more consumers this coming year.
Whole Foods is bursting with innovative products.
Yeah, every day new things coming in, but one that really relates to the conversation we're having today is a brand called Row 7, which is a series of produce offerings. Some of you might know Dan Barber, very famous chef. He really had a passion around wanting to bring back a lot of heirloom varietals and products that ultimately should be grown regionally based upon the particular soil and biodiversity that's taking place. And this has been something that has been a really exciting endeavor with us, where we have products that are seasonally available that are regionally grown. And one of my personal favorites is a Midnight Roma tomato, which is just absolutely delicious and it looks beautiful. There's something also called garlic, which is sort of the combination of a leek and garlic. And so you can find this sort of in our produce department. But what I love about this is it's helping address so many of the different challenges that we talked about today. First and foremost, having the organic certification is just helping ensure, both from a soil health and biodiversity, that the steps that we're looking to take place in protecting the future of our food systems are there. But the focus to also regionally grow these products is a trend that I'm hoping we're going to see much more of. When you look at sort of our food miles across the country, it's really disturbing. So much of the product that we eat and consume today has been grown thousands of miles from where we're at, unless you live in certain parts of California. And that is problematic on a number of different levels. One, naturally the nutrient density is going to be lower in these products. It's had a longer shelf life, and ultimately the miles by which it's had to travel is degraded that as well. It's much more costly. And when you look at the energy that goes into transporting this product, ultimately it's not great for the environment, and it's adding cost to our product at the same time. So as we can help bring in and have products, whether it's sort of local and hyper-local or even regionally available, this I think is going to be a very positive trend that we see. In the case of like Row 7, one of the things it means is not every single product is available year-round. And that's sort of one of the things that I think customers will also have to adjust to. But when you're able to try that product and experience it, it's one that you definitely know it was worth the wait to be able to have it available in the store.
The original limited time offering.
Exactly.
Can I just add that I tried the garlics in the downtown store, and the person who was giving me the sample was the farmer.
Yeah, that's been one of the other things that I think, what I mentioned a little bit earlier, that we need to do is help connect our farmers with our consumers. And it's another great shout out that I'll give Row 7 is they've spent time in all of our stores that are carrying product to help create these activations. They're bringing their team, they're bringing the farmers in, and ultimately our team members are better equipped in understanding those stories. In some cases, the customer themselves can interact with the farmer, or they can interact with our team member who's had a chance to meet the farmer or the supplier here, and being able to tell that story and talk about the uniqueness. And so I think the more we can do that, I think we have the greater opportunity to sort of break through and understand the importance of why we are doing this work.
Yeah, and Dan Barber and Rosa, one thing I really love about their work is their focus on creating markets for rotational crops. So one really key practice in organic agriculture is you're not growing the same crop on the same piece of land over and over again, because that's how disease builds in the soil. So one way to build more resilience is to rotate crops, but creating a market for those rotational crops so that it's not because in some areas, especially some areas of California, the land's just too expensive. You can't afford to not grow a crop for profit. So making a market for some of those rotational crops to, get money back to the farmer, but support a more ecological approach to the farming system.
And that's where the joint business planning that I've been referring to becomes so important in understanding not only, what is going to be sort of the demand and ultimately the plan over a couple of years for the hottest commodity products, but on the rotational crop side, the same thing. Because if the financials don't work in bringing that in, ultimately we're not able to, support the organic practices that we want to, and ultimately we're not really doing right by the soil.
Absolutely. Well, I want to end with just some calls to action for the audience to support organic, but I wanted to remind folks for Q&A, we're going to do note cards. So we have Michael over here with note cards if you want to write a question down. That'll just help us make sure that we get as many questions in as possible. So calls to action. I feel like I'd be remiss with the Food and Drug Administration announcing that they're starting to remove red dye and other artificial ingredients. Whole Foods has always had standards to make sure those kind of ingredients are not sold. That's just, I think shopping at places like Whole Foods, being aware and committed is just one way to get involved. Any other calls to action, Jason, you would have for the audience and how to support organic agriculture?
Yeah, first I'll comment on red dye. I know one of the things I'm so proud of is since opening our very first store here in Austin in 1980, we've never had artificial ingredients and dyes. So red dye number 3 has never been part of the offerings that we've had. And so it was really exciting to see the FDA actually take that step. We have over 300 banned food ingredients, over 550 banned ingredients in our stores. And so one of the things I'm proud of is we do the homework for our customers so they don't have to. And Ricky mentioned a little bit earlier, ultimately, like sometimes you need to have competitors to be able to maybe align and talk and to do good things overall. One of the things that I always say is our quality standards, I'm happy to have folks be able to copy. That is going to help make our food systems a lot better. I'm happy to have some of our competitors to be able to be nationally certified organic as well. So part of what our role is to do is help raise the bar so others will come along. As it relates to the call to action, and I just before we got on stage, I was talking about, I wanted the conversation here to come from a level of optimism, which I am by nature an optimist. And I think we have a lot of opportunity for what we can do to ensure that we can protect our food systems. But the reality is they're under threat right now. Every single year, we are losing nutrient density in our soil. And depending upon which study that you look at, it's somewhere between 60 and 100 years. We're going to continue to struggle, and we won't be able to grow the products that we know and love today if we don't do things differently. And leveraging organic and regenerative agriculture practices is going to be a way to help reverse this trend. And so while this might not be a problem in 5 and 10 years from now, the reality is this is going to be a challenge for future generations. And I feel the responsibility, and I'm hoping we can get more stakeholders across our food systems and across the board to be able to care about the momentum and the change that we need to have. The other part is we are losing farmland on a very regular basis, nearly 2 million acres a year in this country. And that's also going to be problematic. We are also losing farmers. And so if we don't take steps, not only do we not have the nutrient density, we aren't going to have the acreage we need, and we're not going to have the resources and individuals to grow the products. And this is something where I think we have to bring a greater sense of urgency for folks to understand if we don't make change, what does this mean decades from now for future generations? And this is something that is totally in our control. And I come from the optimistic point of how do we work together so we can make the changes within our food systems to not only protect future generations, enjoy the products we know and love, but let's do it in a healthier way at the same time.
Thank you for the optimism. I think we need that now more than ever.
Only thing I'd add to that is I think to speak to the urgency, I think the magnitude of shift of mindset that's going to be required is pretty meaningful. And I think, we have tended to act like, it's sort of the end consumer's responsibility to create the demand for the system to change. And I don't personally think that's fair. I don't think it's viable. And so I share the both optimism and urgency, and I think feel very personally committed and responsible to band together with as many like-minded organizations and bring those that maybe aren't here yet to the table to really leverage our collective power to influence the system changes that are needed. It's going to require deep governmental investment. It's going to require private-public partnership. It's going to require an understanding that there may have to be some, evolutions to how we think about margin profiles in the retail. What does it look like to think about blended margin differently than sort of category margin? There's a lot of work to be done, and I think what you're hearing from probably all of us is a shared belief that none of us can do it alone. So I share the optimism, but I certainly feel the urgency.
On a local level, Austin, Travis County just passed its first ever food plan this past October. So this is part of the systems change. It is the first time we have had the city and the county governments engaged in this process. And the impact is system-wide. One of the things that came out as a result of the research for the food plan was that in a case of an emergency like Winter Storm Uri or other types of emergencies, COVID, Austin only has 1 or 2 days of emergency food supply, and most of the warehouses that supply Austin are located along the I-35 corridor. So there's a lot that work that needs to be done to build resilience within the community, and that includes governmental and non-governmental collaboration and cooperation and creating those systems changes and investing in it.
Thank you. And I just want to put a plug, signing up for the newsletters, following our organizations on social media, making small donations, coming out to plant sales, just kind of anything that helps give back and get connected. So many opportunities in this region.
And just sharing, even if it's just one thing you take away from today's conversation, and go and share it with 10 people and tell them to share it. Like, that's a big part of this as well, is making sure that there is awareness across our customer consumer base of the challenges that we currently face.
Absolutely. Well, lots of great questions here, so let's dig in. This first one's a great question. Was organic started by the government or started by farmers? So organic was started by farmers. So I'll just talk about CCOF. Our organization was started about 50 years ago by small grassroots farmers. They actually would certify each other. They would go out to each other's land and inspect and get together at the kitchen table and fight over what could be allowed and what couldn't be allowed. They were self-regulating. And if you know farmers asking to be regulated is kind of odd, but they were building a movement, and they were really rejecting a kind of post-World War II reliance on synthetic inputs. And they're saying, hey, we want to get off what the chemical guys are selling, and we want to really refocus, harken back to indigenous and farming practices that have been used since millennia, really. So really founded by organic farmers. But like anything, when something's successful, greenwashing happens. So farmers had to start advocating first for a California state regulation, and some other states started to work on this, and then a national regulation. That way companies couldn't slap an organic label on something that didn't have integrity behind it. There is an organic standards advisory board to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They meet twice a year. They debate every input in organic. They debate the practices. There's farmers on that board, as well as consumers, environmentalists, retailers, food manufacturers, trying to keep that grassroots engagement alive. So hopefully we'll continue to see that work in this new era. So hopefully that's helpful. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay, so this is a really timely question. So we are seeing prices rise and consumer anxiety rise about pressures. So how do you preserve the relationship between the consumer and the farmer? Does the messaging of organic shift to be consumer focused? Like, it's better for your health, right? More focus, less on better for the environment, more focus on nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the points we were talking about today is helping make sure that our customers and consumers have an understanding of why this work is important and understanding the benefits for all stakeholders. But I think it has to start with them, and understanding what does it mean for their own health and their family's health. What does it mean for the communities that they are part of? What does it mean for future generations? And so that's one of the opportunities I think that we have, is to better connect so customers understand truly why this work has gone into a particular certification like organic. One of the other things, though, is there's so many opportunities by which customers can be able to shop and support the spectrum of eating healthy. One of the things that I'm proud of at Whole Foods Market is we reduced prices on over 25% of our items last year. We doubled the number of promotions. And my goal is to make sure that we can have value without sacrificing quality. And ultimately, as customers can understand that they can eat healthy and eat better that supports the local environment as well as the future of our food systems, I think that's where we can have the win-win-win opportunity come out of this.
And then I would just add, I think sometimes it's about helping consumers feel less guilty about sort of it being all or nothing. Is there a way you can, form a really strong habit around one meal of the day or one product that you choose? Because it is a difficult burden to just put on the end consumer, as I said, that, it's up to you. If you're not buying 100% organic, you're the problem. It's certainly not the case. And so we try really hard at Daily Harvest to help customers form habit around a particular moment or, whatever they love. And so we've long been, I think, the strongest in our breakfast portfolio, and it is, we've been saying forever, the most important meal of the day. So there are ways to do it in a way that takes some of the pressure and guilt off of the table, and makes it more of a positive choice than sort of a guilty choice.
Yeah, well, a related question. How can we make organic foods affordable for all population? I have a farmer that really likes to say, pay the farmer or pay the doctor. When there's a really cheap food comes at a cost to our environment and our personal health. But at the end of the day, if somebody can't, make that choice, so I think there's programs, local access, so looking towards CSAs and other local programs. We in the United States pay a very low amount of our income towards our food system, and so there is some mind shift. But it is true that access to organic food, sometimes it's even just being able to, if you only have a corner store in your community and you're in an urban area, do they have fresh produce available? So even thinking about where we're selling, bringing more refrigeration to urban environments, increasing access. But there's the kind of the get what you pay for concept, and how do you get more nutritional density, more bang for your buck when you're at the store, so that kind of education.
Yeah, and this is where my optimism gets challenged, because I think it's probably the existential issue of our time, existential issue of our system in general. It's not, any individual blame, but our food system was largely built to deliver calories at the most efficient possible price. And I think, you could argue overhauling our food system is the primary moonshot we should all be working towards. Realigning the North Star of the food system to one of nourishment would be one of the greatest challenges we've ever taken on. But, the age-old, the system isn't broken. It's working as it's intended. We have to shift what it's working towards if we're going to make meaningful change. And so, again, super proud of the sort of iteration and the sort of improvements businesses and nonprofits like ours are doing. But I think there is this sort of existential reality we have to contend with.
And I think a big part of this is, helping make sure that consumers, customers understand what they eat and how it impacts their bodies. Getting to folks at a young age is really important when you're looking at helping create the right, basically practices and behaviors that folks can take into their lives. Some of the work that we do with our foundations, we mentioned a little bit about Whole Cities and some of the work that we're supporting here in Austin, but we also have something called Whole Kids, where we are putting salad bars in thousands of schools across the country, bringing gardens into schools, and helping understand the importance of what it's like to eat healthy and nourishing your body with nutrient density versus just calories. And so I think there's a big piece on the educational side as well, and understanding what you eat and how it's actually going to impact you.
I do think there's an opportunity to, on the government level, especially locally here in Austin, our Fresh for Less program is heavily funded by the local government to improve food access, and then we add that component of local and organic through Farmshare. There's another concept that's been floated around of the idea of your local farmer being a public servant in the same way that you have someone who is a firefighter or you have someone who is a teacher. And so that the local community, your government, is investing in employing farmers who are then growing that produce that gets distributed in the community. And it's a really interesting way to think of the farmer as an intrinsic part of the community in the same way you expect an emergency service or your water to turn on when you turn on your faucet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share in California, there's been some trials with medically tailored meals. So when somebody gets out of the hospital, they're sick, they're not able to get to the grocery store, they end up eating a lot of fast food and they find themselves back in the hospital. So actually doctors being able to prescribe organic foods because of the nutritional density and reducing the exposure to residues. So more programs like that, more awareness, more institutional purchasing, schools elsewhere, really to drive that change. And I will say, to Ricky's point, I mean, our food system is set up to favor larger producers and to favor a more conventional production. You know, the cost of organic's higher because it costs the farmer more to produce in that way. So it is a mind shift. It is. Okay, so this is a great question, very timely. There's so much confusion for consumers because there's more certifications and labels in the market than ever before. So what is the viewpoint on regenerative? That is a really popular term right now. And are consumers asking for regenerative and paying for regenerative?
I'm happy to jump in there. So yes, this is a very hot topic right now. I mentioned a little bit earlier that Whole Foods, one of the things I'm proud of is we are the only national retailer right now that's requiring third-party verification for regenerative claims. And that's something that I would love to see a lot of other folks doing so as well. And the reason for that is I worry that sometimes that word can mean, turn to something like the word natural. It really doesn't mean anything. There's no teeth behind it. And so when I mentioned earlier around one of our goals is trying to create a bigger tent where we can change the practices that are taking place across our agricultural landscape in this country. That's part of the reason that we've really embraced this work. On the consumer side is we are finding a lot of interest in this space overall on the consumer side. They're very curious. This is an area that our team members get a lot of questions on. And we are seeing, for particular customer segments, really leaning in towards products that have some of these claims. ROC, which is Regenerative Organic certified, is one of the areas where we're seeing a lot of positive momentum across our store. And one of the things I'm proud of is we're actually the first grocer that's actually brought private label products or exclusive brand products that have been regenerative certified, including ROC certification in several of them. Our dried mangoes being one of my favorites of those products that we have. And so this is, I think, something where we have more work to do so our customers aren't confused, our consumers aren't confused. But ultimately, I look at this as a way for us to create a big tent that really builds a positive momentum of raising the bar across our agricultural practices.
Yeah, regenerative is, the definition is still in the works. I would say regenerative agriculture has a lot of roots in organic practices. It tends to have a really strong emphasis on soil health, and in particular thinking about capturing and storing carbon as a climate mitigation tool. So there's some folks who would call regenerative organic light, so it's soil health, but you're still using glyphosate and herbicides. But regenerative organic certification, as Jason mentioned, is really organic plus, because not only are you meeting the organic standards, there's additional soil health, animal welfare, and social welfare components. So looking at, are you paying your workers a living wage? So I think more to come on whether this term regenerative takes hold, what the definition is, and I do think social auditing, social certifications, looking at the working conditions of those growing and harvesting and tending the land is sort of the next phase of certification to be seen. Question about ag tech playing a role in advancing regenerative agriculture. Any thoughts? Yeah, so ag tech, I'll just say, I mean, we could have a whole panel about farm labor, and I think increasingly challenging to source farm labor, and so farmers are very much looking towards technology and different innovative technologies like robots that can harvest strawberries, for example. It's especially challenging for produce because something like strawberries, it's such an art to harvest a perfectly ripe strawberry and package it so it doesn't, it stays fresh. And most tech is really designed for like one crop. So if you have a highly diversified farm, being able to afford those different technologies is quite a challenge. So more innovation is coming in the produce sector, but I think we always have kind of some caution around like how do we keep up the diversity in the systems.
I feel like in the ag tech question often goes back to what's happening on the farm. A bit biased because we're a frozen brand, but I think there's also really interesting ways to think about supply chain technology from an aggregation and distribution standpoint, and then also things like individually quick frozen technology to help mitigate some of the risk and help mitigate some of the uncertainty around organic farming. And so less maybe sexy and interesting than the sort of future of robotics, but if we think about supply chain as technology investments, and if we think about aggregation as sort of critical areas of focus, I think there's a lot still to be unlocked there. So just would add that.
The part of that I would add is there's so much emerging technology around understanding the soil health and being able for farmers to understand the different conditions that are happening over different acres within their land. And so that's something that I think will really help us being able to understand the importance of the work that we're all doing today and where there might be challenges in certain areas as our farmers are growing these products. The other one, which we didn't spend a lot of time on today, is around food waste. And so there's a lot of technology that's advancing in this space and helping understand the quality of the product and when is the right time to be picking or ultimately making different adjustments into what might be our growing or harvesting practices as well. And so that's some of the areas that I get really excited about as well, as there's so much food waste that's taking place today. And going back to some of the questions around why our food costs what it does, when we have food that's ultimately not getting into the hands of consumers, that's increasing costs for everyone. And so that'll be opportunities, I think, as well for us.
Great point on the food waste. Okay, last question. I think this is great for Andrea, and then we'll wrap up, and we'll be around. There's some questions about insects and stuff maybe we can connect with. Thoughts on enjoying or engaging a younger generation in choosing sustainable agriculture career paths?
I think I remember reading from the National Farmers Census that actually the fastest growing group of farmers in this country is younger farmers and farmers who are interested in growing organically and farmers who are interested in growing on 50 acres or less. So I believe that the interest is there. We see an interest in the number of adults who are applying for our programs or are interested in starting farming in other ways. It's those barriers. It's the barriers because of access to land. It's the barriers, access to capital. It's the barriers, access to markets. It's those barriers that are keeping people from being able to succeed and having that pathway. USDA actually defines beginning farming as the first 10 years of farming. So beginning farmers need a lot of support and a lot of mentorship and a lot of community. Farming can be a very lonely occupation. Some people seek it because they like to be alone, but people don't like to be alone forever necessarily. And it's also a little bit scary. If something's happening to me on my farm, I may not want to share that with my neighbor if I don't trust my neighbor entirely that they're going to take advantage of that for their own business. So it's of creating that farm community, and that is one thing that Farmshare tries to do. We do cohort-based learning so that each class becomes trusted companions and trusted colleagues of one another. And then we join all those different graduates together, and with that, we create a farming community.
Well, I can say I was on the farm yesterday and could see the community, the hugs, the acknowledgement, the sharing of ideas. So beautiful what you've created.
I have one nugget of optimism just that ties to that question. As we look at sort of future generations, we did some work studying the Gen Z consumer, and over 2/3 are interested in climate-friendly agriculture practices and seeing more products in the marketplace, and over half are willing to pay more. And so I really believe, from a generational perspective, the awareness of the importance of this work situates in that generation right now. And so we need more of them to become farmers, which we have to address some of those problems. But I think the interest of future generations in doing this work is absolutely out there.
Absolutely, and Gen Z is a particular, they know their stuff. They're going to hold you accountable. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to our panelists and for all of you for being here for the conversation. Really appreciate the opportunity.